everyone. So welcome to our next segment of Once a Lawyer series. And today we have Sachin Malhan with us. A little bit of introduction about Sachin. He's a 2002 graduate of National Law School, Bangalore, and he began his career with the law firm Amarchand and Mangaldas. Since then, Sachin has tread a fairly unorthodox career path. He is currently the co-founder of Agami, which galvanizes collaborative efforts of advancing new and improved systems of law and justice in our country.
Yes. Sachin, really nice to have you here. Hope you're excited about this as well as we are.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this.
So let me start by first asking you about your childhood days. Why don't you tell us about how you were as a child and in your early years?
Yeah, that's it's always good to go back to those days. Nitika, my childhood really was quite fantastic. I mean, I had my share of adversity, but I do remember lots and lots of books. My sister is a strong personality. She's 4 years elder to me. So literally she was like, "Pado, ye karo, ye pado, wo pado." As a 4 5 year old, having a 8 9 year old sister who's like, "Ye pado, wo karo." So she made sure that I got onto my Enid Blytons and Tintins and Asterixes and then science fiction, and so there was always a lot of books, and some of my best memories are lying on. And I grew up in a few different cities, but Calcutta is my foundational sort of growing up experience. From the age of 8 or 9, I think I was in Calcutta right till I finished school. So lying back on the couch and reading a book, and just getting immersed in those worlds. I don't know, sometimes I joke and say that today nothing immerses you the way a book would immerse you as a child, because you get lost in that world, and somehow you always, today when you're reading, you kind of have a reference outside, like you don't get totally lost, but as a child I would get totally lost. I would imagine myself to be a character in those books, and the creativity would come from there. So at the same time, there was a lot of that idyllic childhood, and Calcutta is a great place to grow up. Very culturally oriented, a lot of theater, music. So I got to see a little bit of that, do a little bit, but not that as much as I would like to. And then the share of challenges that are there, which is there was serious ill health in my family for many years, which affected us all quite deeply, and left its sort of, I don't know, I haven't done any psychoanalysis of that, but it has its impact in terms of who you become, I think, because I think that the ill health that was there also was accompanied by tremendous financial kind of challenges. So at some level I realized very quickly the importance of being resourceful and figuring things out for yourself. So that one world of stories and books and whatever, and the other world completely of being resourceful and understanding that survival is not to be taken for granted. So it was a fascinating childhood experience. Sometimes I wish I could watch it as a slow movie and just see what am I doing. but now it's just postcards or memories. So yeah, but mostly in Calcutta.
And Sachin, you wanted to get into the medical school as well. Like if it was either law for you or it was either medical school for you, though medical school was your first preference. So how did that happen? You have doctors in your family, or?
No, I don't have doctors in the family, but I have always had an interest in I think I always had an interest in science. Like, and I don't necessarily mean like the science that they were teaching us in school, but like I would read the books I would read, and Carl Sagan, and all the sci-fi influence, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. I think I was interested in it, and just curious. I remember at home there used to be this book called How Things Work that my father had, because he was an engineer, and I remember consuming How Things Work like as if it was like a comic. And so there was always that curiosity, and somehow it kind of grew into the whole medicine. I had this notion that, that's where it is. Of course, as a child, you don't know much. You were kind of making these half-baked choices too early in your life, right? In India, too early in your life. So that I kind of started going in that direction, and I don't know, life could have been very different, but fortunately, I gave law school. The law school exam is a kind of backup, and at that time it was not so competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, as it is, I'm sure now I would get in only. But at that time, I gave the exam and I just barely got in by the skin of my teeth. And I just went there. And the medical results, fortunately or unfortunately, were not great. So I decided to go there. So life is so random, right?
So it was never a medical or law thing. It was more like that was just one of the options.
Law was law. Just to make sure that again, survival, right? I had kept law and hotel management as two general papers, because
That is
for that you
diverse.
didn't need to prepare. You didn't need to prepare in the same way, right? It's a more kind of aptitude based. So I said, okay, let me prepare for medicine, and then I'll give a few aptitude based exams just to make sure that kahin na kahin I'm so so that was my it was crazy. So I gave law as more of a, let's just give it, as a backup. So yeah, I had no clue that that's where I would ultimately land. It's a horrible story, I know that, but
Actually, I think
life is
some of the best stories start by accident, Sachin. I mean, it's never always been intention, right?
most of them are a stream of accidents anyway. It's all this idea that I'm scripting my pathway step by step. It doesn't work.
So you went to NLS, all right, and so we hear a lot about NLS, okay, in terms of it is the best college in the country for legal studies, right? So and the fact that the students there are sort of isolated away from the rest of the world. You have your own campus residency. What transformation did you see in your personality by the time you graduated? Like, what is the difference between the boy who went in at 18 and the guy who came out at 23?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah. Huge. The boy who went in had never lived outside his house. He was now in this, like you said, removed from the city campus of 400 people from every corner of the country, arts, sciences, commerce, fierce Punjabis, intellectual Bengalis, highly culturally acclimatized Tamilians, whatever, the full range of specimens that you could come across, right? And to be there and to share those 5 years in the hostels, in the college, was really like a transformative experience. One was the learnings that are happening formally, but oh my God, just interacting and conversations and 5 years spent together and going through the ups and downs as a late teens person, just really huge. And I think that if I have to point out 3-4 things, I'll say one is I think the expansion of the mind, different ways of viewing things and looking at things, huge expansion of the mind. Two, a development of self-confidence, that these things I can do well because I did them, and some of them I failed gloriously, but I learned about what things I do well. And that also triggered a certain deeper inner confidence, And the third thing I think was just the entrepreneurial journey began there, right? It began in those in my hostel room in 2009. And And 209 is the name of the room. is not is 2009. It was 1999. But it began there. It began there that we started our first venture, which was law school tutorials, and got a computer. I mean, it's all like really new stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
99, got a computer and
You had like
and learned
Windows ME or Windows XP or something at that point of time, right? Yeah.
learned how to make a website using Dreamweaver,
Wow.
and started and got to know Bangalore because we had to print our books there. So we were doing this test prep for the law school exams, right? We started doing that law school tutorial. So and then that itself became a remarkable experience. And how do you build something? How do you make something? I'm not kidding. Like making a book, making a website, designing an experience. And then in the holidays, we would go to some of these prominent schools to distribute these flyers and say, prepare for your law school exams using our program. That itself was a crazy experience. Imagine standing at the gate and distributing these flyers, or going and so all these experiences. By the time I graduated, I think I was completely different. I was a completely different person, in 2002. I had gone through so many different experiences. Also, all the personal experiences, your friends, falling in love, all of that. Everything happens, falling out of love. Everything has happened, I mean, you can imagine how profound.
And okay, so you must have developed certain strengths while at NLS, right? Or at least understood that okay, here are things that I'm good at. Here are traits that I have that would help, and which has obviously served you pretty well over the past 18 odd years. You worked at Amarchand, and you started various organizations yourself. What do you think in terms of your skill set and your attitude, right? What do you think your particular strengths are that have been crucial towards your career? Not saying for everyone else, because everyone else has different pathways, right? But for your career, what has been the main strength that has helped you do this?
Yeah. I mean, there is an instinctual response that I realized I was a powerful communicator. But I think there was a very strong aspect of the teacher in me. So if I had to kind of look at it as just communication, that's one thing. But I think I realized my superpower was as a teacher. So it is overlapping with the communication, right? You have to be a good communicator. But I was able to take something and humanize it and engage people around it, So if I was to stand in I still remember in third year, I was asked to present something on the topic of consent in rape, right? In criminal law, the notion, which is a very controversial thing, right? Because what is the definition of consent? And I remember going up and having this experience where I felt I got to a different place. Like I could, while I was explaining, it really came alive for me. And I was able to transmit that in a way that was not just insightful for people, but emotional, and they wanted to engage. So there's definitely, I discovered that about myself, which was interesting. Like, where is this coming from? Why? Otherwise, I would see myself as largely more introverted, person. But like this ability to mobilize and to communicate and to not just rhetoric but explain things, I think this was the real thing that came through, and this has stuck with me through life, and I now see it almost as something coming through me rather than, I mean, my thing, like this is my place. My purpose here is to show up and channelize that clarity and bring those insights. So that I have kept with me, that power, And the second related thing I would say is the maker ability. When I say maker ability, is this aesthetic ability to appreciate how things are made, and a thing doesn't have to be an object only. It could be an initiative, could be an experience. Doesn't have, but appreciating its creation, and also being able to go there, create it, whatever it takes to create it, that maker. And you can see it in a child, right? Tuck, 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 putting
Yeah.
something together, and or that is there in me as well. And that again, that also, when I look at childhood, see the communication teaching part, there were glimpses when I was in school,
Mm-hmm.
glimpses, but I was never completely in touch with that because there was a lot of self confidence issues,
Mm-hmm.
lot of fragility. But the maker part I do, because I remember science experiments and rockets, and definitely. And that, and then I remember in class 11, 12 being very in fact, Nishant, my school, one of my best friends in school, who
Mm-hmm.
also went to law school with me, was Nishant Parekh, right? Nishant is now a partner at Trilegal, and he and I were in school together, and we would talk about stuff like, okay, this we should start a T-shirt company, with slogans. So there was always something like, where was this coming from? My family is not a business family. I think it was just the desire to bring creativity, to manifest that creativity. उसका
You
कुछ
mentioned.
करना है.
Sachin, I'm very curious to know now that we're talking about, your strengths, and I really wish I had heard of this a little earlier. And I think it's never too late to start, right? Like, I do think on those lines, hey, yeah, like different business ideas, and
Yeah.
just keep yourself up to date that ways. So how do you think people can develop such strengths? What about people
Yeah.
who aren't good communicators and who want to be
Yeah.
more, eloquent about it? What can they do?
Yeah. So, I can talk about the communication part, but even before that, there's a quote that I really love, that I can share. Um, it goes, life is the unfoldment of a being under circumstances tending to press it down. So it's almost like there are always going to be circumstances that are keeping you down or keeping you, but life is the unfoldment of your full potential, right? And you are responsible for it, nobody else. You can go through your entire life being in a muted state where you don't touch these capacities. No, forget about who's watching, for whom, who validates your life. It is such a personal experience. One cannot get into your head, right, Nitika? One can't get into your head, Michael. In your world, everybody else is just a side character. You are. So the core point here is that finding your powers is your is a responsibility. You have to
Very nice.
find your power. There's always going to be obstacles and reasons to not do it, but you have to lean in and find your powers. It has to be one of your single biggest areas of work. You have them. Just want to share, in school, like I said, I was terrified. I had issues of self-image, and I was not confident, and I thought I was a kind of like all kinds of things, right? I felt I was a nerdy, bespectacled kid, very thin at that time, and I felt embarrassed about being on stage or being anywhere, and all those things. We all go through that, right? We're not born as some kind of superstars traipsing around, right? We have deep insecurities. How do you, maybe you never lose all of them, maybe some of them will stay with you, but regardless of that, the responsibility to flower, to really invest in yourself. So my thing is that putting yourself, they always say put yourself in harm's way. I will say put yourself in harm's way, but in a good way. Like, try things, try, experiment, explore. I have been surprised by my own capacity to do certain things that I would never have thought as
Mm-hmm.
possible. So what is the thing that you're going to try? Because it's not about that thing only. Somebody says for you, come, we're going to do an extempore singing evening. It's not about, I want to become a great singer. You never know when you have that breakthrough moment, when you're wild and doing something silly, what else you unlock.
Hmm.
That is the thing. So how are you going to do the things that unlock basically डर के आगे जीत है. uh,
Boring
and
process.
and trying things, and trying even
Mhm.
small. So I feel that, and this, when you told me about once a lawyer, it really made me think that, is this the inflection point that is forcing many of us to find our superpowers?
Is
because 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 if it wasn't there, we could have coasted our entire lives just kind of hanging about. Is
Yeah.
this the inflection point? Is this what, the philosopher, Ramdas, who passed away last year, great spiritual master, he calls fierce grace? Grace, because it is a benevolence, it is like something that is a beautiful thing for you, it is going to help you. Fierce, because it's a slap on your face. Fierce grace, right? uh, he had a stroke which forced him to reconsider his life. So is this the fierce grace, right? Is a very important question for all of us to consider. And you can't look left, you can't look right, there's nobody. Okay, I know we want the support of our sister, our friend, our mother, our brother, our husband, our wife. You are going through this individual experience. You have to take the responsibility for it. You know.
Got it, Sachin.
So, Sachin, you've been part of different organizations, right? All varied in their objective, their scope, the way they operated. From LSD to Rainmaker, to Agami right now. What sort of driven you through all this? As in, is there a common connector between all these organizations and what you've done? What's guided you through them?
That's a great question. So I think that once I did LST, or law school tutorials, that exposure to life as an entrepreneur, it, I found myself. I know now I know who I am at the core. And I don't want to say I'm an, like, entrepreneur is a good term, but I know that I am a maker. I am a creator. I love the processes. I love stories. I like to build things. I like to be around people who like to build things. So this is what I know about myself. Like, this is what I know. This is my terrain. I'm I'm probably really bad at uh, a lot of stuff would that somebody would need to do to manage really well, or whatever. But those, I know what I enjoy doing. So that's one thing that I know. Um, once that has been a consistent thread, but also I think, Michael, then after that it has been more and more and more what life just happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I could build a narrative for you. The narrative that I could build for you would be something like, okay, and the narrative is not entirely false, but okay, I did LST. LST showed me the potential of young people, which is absolutely true. It showed me that people who go on to study law are essentially publicly minded, and they are waiting to have an impact on the world. um, Most of them. um, and then, the Rainmaker experience and Inclusive Planet, all these experiences, yes, they are connected. They have given me new skills. And today, if Agami's principal goal is to unleash a movement of innovation and change making in law and justice, if that's the goal, that we want to see hundreds of thousands of innovators and change makers in law and justice, because problems will come and go, but the mindsets of change making are the ones that will stay, and people will solve these problems, right? If that's what we want to see, yes, it is linked to everything that has happened before, but at an intuitive level, it's also just me being open to what is coming my way. What is and if I'm in tune with myself, then I can hear what the universe is saying,
Hmm.
you know. But
Your
that
opportunities are
might
present.
be the, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's coming my way because I've made an ask for it. That's my
Hmm.
philosophy. I have said this is who I am and what's next for me. And yes, thoughts come, ideas come. I connect things. I'm a creative person, so all of that, that's good. That's there. That's it's almost like two things together. No, एक side पे it's the opportunities, the possibilities
Hmm.
which are there. Other side पे you need to have someone to cook with that, no, to
Sure.
play with that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the playing with that is the things I've gathered all these years. But at the end of the day, the signal to saying this is what I want to do, where are the opportunities, they come, they
Hmm.
come. But I will say that for some people, uh, maybe it will take time to reach this level of listening, if I may call it that. And at that point in time, what's really important is to give circumstances a chance. See, if you say I'm stuck, but you don't even do anything to enable the world around you to show up differently, then how can you expect something? You can't have it both ways, right? You have to show up in a way where you become the most open person yourself, and then the opportunities come. You
If
go
I,
down, it's like you.
if
Yeah,
I
sorry,
could,
you were
if
saying,
I could
Michael.
interrupt you there, it's
Yeah,
sort of like,
yeah,
let's take the current scenario into as an example, right? So a person right now a lawyer right now who's not say getting a job, or who has been
yeah,
applying everywhere, but there's
yeah,
openings whatsoever.
yeah,
What really I think comes in the way of like good, rational, and what you thought or what you just mentioned, like creative thinking, is that their mind is harping all these made up pressures. Things like your friends have a job, you need to pay rent, and you're not like, that's where the whole not listening thing comes to, because you're already tormented by all these thoughts, right? How does one put that aside and at that point listen to what, in the way you put it, it's what the world is telling you?
yeah, absolutely. And I know that those pressures are real. I know that those fears are real and the pain is real. But the power that you have, um, if that is an inflection point, right? Remember, if one door is closed, another one is open,
Mhm.
right? But it may not be. You have to go down. You have to explore that.
Hmm.
So when this thing happens, if you react from, or you don't react from a place entirely of that trauma, that challenge, then you're not taking advantage of it, which is the advantage is it's saying, or dekho, look
Hmm.
elsewhere,
Hmm.
try differently.
Hmm.
It's also saying that it's not just giving you, it's not just the pain, it's also
Yeah.
saying, try this, try that, try this differently. Something is not working,
Change it.
Michael, try something else,
Hmm. Hmm.
see where it goes. And I think consistently, if you were to look at people's life experiences, they always say that these moments were the most powerful moments in their life. Even if something you try is not successful, people never look back and say that was crap. They always say, I'm so glad
Glad
I
that
looked at
happened.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that is the reality, how is it then that we don't do it? Because of inertia,
Hmm.
because of fear, even though we know the wisdom.
Hmm.
You have to dive in. You have to get your hands dirty. Many false starts here and there. And then you kind of come to opportunities and you go, 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 go. So I think this is the time to be really generative, really experimental, to explore, to try. Um, and I have seen, in Bangalore, for instance, in the food industry,
Hmm.
so much
Hmm.
creativity, uh, home cooks, and
Hmm.
sourcing of materials and classes, and really tremendous create. I've also seen the education space. While we've had the horror stories of schools shutting down, I've seen so many people teaching languages online,
Hmm.
doing this, doing so. Where that's there, no? those abilities are there. I'm not saying that this means you're going to become this person for your life, but open those doors, pull those curtains. You never know what comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Try things.
Yeah.
Adopt the mindset of a sponge, of a really creative person who's going to put themselves out there. If you don't put yourselves out there, universe is not listening.
So, Sachin, I mean, picking up on this only, during your journey so far, where you set up such unique and successful ventures, you feel that you had missed some opportunities back then, and if at all, in the current scenario, how would you cope up with that? Like, how would you take that on as a challenge?
Nitika, I've seen my fair share of failures in this journey, right? Um, there's been so many that it's hard to count, right? So, in fact, whenever I write about my experience, I always write about the fact that as someone who loves entrepreneurship, my commitment has not been, I know that it's not all going to work all the time, right? I ready to embrace those failures. They're always hard when they come, but they are there. And I've had some absolutely devastating, I mean, at that time, what felt devastating failures, right? So then the question becomes, how do you rebound from those failures? How do you? And I
Right.
think that one is that when you have tasted failures, and when you have accepted yourself and said, who says life is going to be all amazing? Who says that? If you accept that, that's a very big thing, that that the whole nature of life is that it's going to be up and down, up and down. That's really important. But sometimes, it's not enough to know it conceptually, because we have such a success mantra in life. It's too strong, I tell you. Like, this whole notion of school and college, and really what life is a string of successes. Kid went to this college, kid did this, kid did that. It's too much. So that is sometimes knowing that that's not really how life works is not enough. Let me just, so it doesn't matter whatever I say. There'll be a hard coding that will make you scared of failure. And that is the reason why, again, you have to take that responsibility and try and make sure that you recognize failure will come. And you don't want to be the person who goes through seeming successes and then disaster hits because you could not believe how this. And that's, then you're less resilient, right? You're not ready to. If you've never been knocked down, you don't even know how to stand up. When you've been knocked down, then you can stand up. You can stand up many times. So at some level, I think we have a problem in the way we encode our society. We are not embracing the failures. But I would say, for me, experiencing many failures, micro failures, macro failures, was great. It felt very difficult. Then subsequently, I think what I've done is I've taken the path of investing in my own self development. My meditation, my yoga. The
Mm-hmm.
single most important thing I do every day, the single most important thing around which everything resolves, is the work I do with myself, because that work keeps me better prepared. Now, how is a tricky one? Actually, stronger? Does it make me? I don't know. But all I do know is, when I do the things for my inner well-being, I have a better perspective on everything that's happening around me, including the adversity. So I could give mantras for, like, how to get back up, and failure is normal and all that. But, and which it is, and it's all around us, and failure, and we should be reading a lot more about failure because it's so common,
Mm-hmm.
and we should be celebrating those small failures as well. But I would also say developing your own inner capacity.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it can be a physical act. People like to hike, or they do their music, or they do whatever. And for other people, there's internal work that keeps you grounded and helps you recognize that you are fundamentally a flawed human being,
Mm-hmm.
trying to walk this path in the most graceful way you can, stumbling frequently. You know. So I think that those are things that are important here.
Thank you, Sachin. This is really insightful. I have an interesting question for you that's actually coming from a very dear friend of yours, that's Ritvik. He really wanted to ask you that how do you think becoming a parent has changed your perspective, or how it has impacted your personality as a leader?
That's really interesting to ask the question. Uh, so I have a daughter who's going to be who's 4.5 right now, and I what whatever story you tell yourself, you always try consciously or subconsciously to make your child in a certain way. See, you might say, "Oh my God, that's error number one," but trust me, you may believe this or not. You are going to try consciously, subconsciously to make the child in a certain way, which is you'll want the child to be exposed to certain things and do certain things, and it's there. It's the truth. And the child always, not always, but very often defeats you. The child will, you cannot.
Mm-hmm.
The child. So I get frustrated sometimes, and then what happens, right? When I get frustrated, I learn that this is not the way. So for me, my daughter has taught me that teaching is not, my being a parent to her is not about helping her go in some defined way with some defined skills and capacities. I could have that, nothing wrong with having that general goal, but how must I engage with her to enable her to flower on her own terms and with her own capacities, right? Now that shift, that very subtle shift, and I'll give you an example. uh, I say, Leela, that's my daughter's name, and I say, ba ba, uh, what is ba, and she goes, and then she's doing some yoga move, and she's standing on her head, and it's not happening. I'm like, Leela, sit down. So in the earlier days of the lockdown in particular, I'd be like, Leela, sit down. And Leela, why aren't you sitting down? And then I say, can you see? Now I say, oh, can you see from there? Okay, now what does the world look like? What does this look like? And then she looks at it and goes, wow. And or she
Oh,
looks at it and says, it looks like two mountains or two pieces of idli. And then I say, ba, ba like what? And then she says, ba, whatever, like sheep.
Mm.
Or she doesn't want to say, on her own terms, in her own. Can I go to her experience? Now that's really powerful learning, yeah.
yeah.
Because I mean, that makes you recognize life is not happening according to your plans. And your child is showing you, your very own child is showing you life is not happening according to your plans. I can't imagine, oh, you know what, I don't want her to be caught in a rat race, but I still want her to appreciate Hindustani classical music and
Mm.
dance. No, no, she's going to go through her own journey. You can expose her, you can model and show her what living can be like. You can get curiosity, but just let life happen on its own terms. It's much bigger experience than you. So, child shows you that such a direct way, and it improves you as a human being. It improves you as a leader. Uh, it's a brilliant experience, and also just learning to be with love, like the love for a child. I think it has this ability to really heal you. It heals you, whichever ways in which you have been affected. So it's a phenomenal experience. If it can frustrate the life out of you when you resist it. If you resist it, then it can destroy. It'll knock you out.
But then also
But
learning,
yeah,
patience.
oh, so much learning, yeah, so much growth. Yeah.
Nice. So, Sachin, last 2 minutes of our discussion, and we want to have a quick rapid fire session with you.
Sure,
We'll
sure.
get some secrets from you. We can. That's at least we're gonna try that out. So, I'm gonna take
Yeah,
the first one. All right, music you listen to when you want to relax.
Hindustani classical.
Like there's a gun to your head and you have to get a tattoo. What would the tattoo be?
I like, okay, the tattoo would say practice.
Nice.
It's a reminder, do your practice. In that case, which is my meditation and my yoga practice. I would like to put it somewhere where I can see it again and again.
Tell us 3 movies you like and why.
Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, for being like the funniest movie that one can imagine. 2001 Space Odyssey, the sci-fi movie.
Oh yeah.
Stanley Kubrick's good movies that I watched with Leela. Moana was very nice, so maybe a
Oh,
movie
yeah.
that I watched with Leela. Yeah.
What do you like to snack on? Your comfort food?
Okay. I really like masala peanuts.
Nice.
Not always accompanied by beer or whatever,
I was
but
just
just
gonna
like it's
say,
one of life's great creations is peanuts with onions and tomatoes.
Favorite subject in law school?
Criminal law,
Subject you hated the most in law school?
civil procedure code.
if you were trapped during this lockdown with a legal luminary, who would that be?
I would like to be trapped with a person who's no longer alive. This woman called Iravati Karve, who's a sociologist who wrote the series of essays called Yuganta on characters from the Mahabharata. And why I'm saying it's a good answer is because she explored in many cases the concept of dharma, and dharma is a very profound concept that I wish we would also learn in law school.
Certain people whose career paths or icons you find inspiration from.
Gurcharan Das, the writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anu Aga, the business leader.
Okay.
Let's say your life, maybe 5-7 years down the line, is made into a movie. Who do you think should play you as the leading character?
Maybe Vikrant Massey.
Ooh, nice. Such in creativity or empathy?
Empathy.